Yahoo! Let me step across the room just for a second and see if I can find a rag over here. Are you there? Are you there? Hey friends. There we go. Hey friends, thanks for joining me today. I have a little bit of an oddball broadcast I want to do right now. In fact, I want to do two broadcasts this afternoon, and they're completely separated one from the other. And the first one, as you see, I've entitled it, by the way, this is Daily Art Adventure number 517. And it was 2 years ago yesterday that I started the Daily Art Adventures. And I've averaged right at 5 broadcasts per week for 2 years. So that's where I'm at. Thanks for joining me today. Okay, so I've titled this, if you're a painter or a drawer, either one, a drawer, that's a word that's hard to say, you know. If you're a drawer, painter or drawer, don't move like this. Okay, this was part of a long ongoing campaign of mine to try to help students. So if you're a student painter, if you're a beginner painter, then please pay close attention to this. I'm going to give you some information that I hope will send you far down the right road toward good painting and keep you off the wrong road of bad painting. You ready? So yesterday afternoon, evening, it was New Year's Day. It was kind of a day off. And I found myself doing a very oddball project. One of the things I bought for my wife for Christmas is some nice new pots and pans. My wife is a good cooker and she deserves good cooking stuff, so I bought her some good stuff. And she was very happy with that. That means we're going to sell or get rid of, in one way or the other, her 38-year-old Revere ware. Okay, I just happen to have a piece of Revere ware right here. Now, the bottom of this pan before yesterday's project was pitted and scarred and brown and black and quite tarnished. So this is the project. I got through about 4 of these. And while I was cleaning up, which was quite the vigorous project, while I was doing it yesterday, it dawned on me, you know what? This is exactly the kind of thing that my students need to see. Now you're wondering, what in the world does this have to do with painting? Well, here's what it has to do with painting. If you want to be a good painter, don't move like this. Okay, don't move like what? Now, this is dry. Yesterday it was wet and it had some of that scouring powder on it. Plus I was using a Brillo pad. I was using all kinds of tools and one of those other kind of synthetic scratchy pads I used a lot. But you want to know what I used the most? Elbow grease. And so during the minutes that I was working on this project, I was going like this. Now I just want to admit something right here, because maybe I clean the kitchen like a man. Okay, can't help it. I am a man. But I was doing stuff. I go like this, and I'm pushing hard. And then, of course, I don't want all my rough marks going that way, so then I'm going like this, around that way. Then I get tired of that, so I go round the other way. And then I switch hands, and I go like this. And then I have to do the edge, so I pick it up like this. And now I'm doing another motion completely. I'm doing this kind of thing. And yes, I was grunting and groaning, just like I'm doing right now. Except I did it for, many more minutes. Maybe 10 or 15 minutes per pot. Okay, here's what I mean. If you're a beginner painter, your hands, and by this I mean literally your hands, your arms, have a number of skills, I could say. Your hands, your arms have a number of movements programmed into them by life, especially if you're the kind of person that cleans stuff. Now, the demonstration I just gave of cleaning the copper bottom on a pot would also apply to brushing a horse. You get the picture? It would apply to painting a big wall with a roller. Okay? All of these motions, it would apply to maybe scrubbing, washing your car, polishing your car, of course, maybe cleaning your dog. If you have a lot of hair, unlike me, like I used to have, it might apply to the way you rub your head when you're shampooing your hair. All of these movements, all of these motions have one very particular thing in common. Okay, what is it? All of these motions have one thing in common. Well, two things. They are repetitive. You want to see it in slow motion? Slow motion. Okay, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, or around and around and around, or around the other way, around. Repetitive, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They're repetitive. They can be done with strength and vigor. All of these motions. And if you're a human being, if you're a normal human being, you have a whole repertoire of these kinds of motions. You use them in life. Okay? Whatever it may be, not just for polishing Revereware pots, but all those other, everything in life. Whenever you're cleaning and rubbing or doing something, see how my hand is moving right now. Now, I should say they have two things in common. One, they can be repeated quickly and with energy and strength. Like if I was sanding the top of this, let's pretend this is now a piece of sandpaper, and I want to sand my light table, which in fact I do periodically. See that motion? Back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, and I can apply a pressure, and then I get tired, so I switch to the other hand. Okay, I'm assuming you got the picture now. Now, I have watched literally hundreds, probably thousands, at least over 1,000, somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 painting students, art students, wannabe painters. And now let's change gears and pretend, okay, I don't have a canvas in front of me or a canvas behind me. So this little piece of paper, that'll have to do as a canvas. And let me pick up a brush. And when they begin their adventure, their journey into painting, here's what they do. They transfer all of the skills that are programmed into their hands. Rubby, 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 scrubby, swirly, 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 swirly. And they come over here to the canvas and they bring those skills with them and they start doing. Do you see this? What I'm doing? It's smaller now. I don't have to push hard, but do you see what I'm doing? I used to call this and still do brushy, brushy, brushy. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm almost off the page. There we go. Brushy, brushy, brushy. Now, this is so deeply ingrained into most people. I remember once about 4 or 5 years ago, I was actually doing a one-on-one. I don't do one-on-one art painting classes very often, but this is a dear old friend. I owed her a favor, and so I was doing on the porch, doing a one-on-one painting class with this dear friend, and I was trying to describe to her, because she was doing like everybody else. You know, you've got to pretend here, right, that I've got, let me put some water on this brush. You got to pretend that there's something on this brush. Oh my goodness. So I just spilled water all over everywhere. So there's something on this brush, and the student is painting, or if they're left-handed, they're painting like this. You got the picture? And so, again, this is so ingrained that I told my friend, to whom I was giving this one-on-one art class, I said, now, don't do these kinds of motions. And I demonstrated like that. And she said, oh, okay. I looked over a second later, she was doing this. Are you getting it? This is just another version of this. Anything that your hand does quickly and repeatedly is a, how can I say this, is a god-awful way to paint. I really, do you sense some passion here? Because I can get another piece of paper here so I can continue my tirade. So again, we're going to pretend this is a canvas. And I'll do some good motions in just a minute. But the instinct that a non-artist has to do any of these motions is so indelibly ingrained into their mind that I want to be a 19th century nun slapping hands with rulers. I don't really approve of slapping hands with rulers, and I'm not saying all nuns slapped hands, but you know the archetypical caricature that we all have of the horrible authoritarian corporeal punishment nuns of the 19th century. We'll put it back to the 19th. I want to slap hands with rulers. None of this. 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 Nothing that you can do like that. That is all absolutely forbidden if you want to be a good painter. Okay? Calm down, Dan. No, I will not calm down. Because I want you guys to get this. Okay. So why don't we move like that? Again, because it makes, forgive my language, it makes god-awful, ugly marks. Ugly, or as I like to say, if something is really ugly, it's ugly. Ugly marks. We don't want you making ugly or even ugly marks in your painting. And all such repetition is ugly. Now, let me give one caveat, one exception, one little escape clause. There are brief moments, brief and rare. But if you're a beginner, you don't even hear me say this because you'll take this one escape clause to say, he said we could do it. No. There is one time, I'm switching brushes here, when you can use that repetitious moment, and listen to my language carefully. It is any time that you are intentionally obfuscating texture. Now, some of you are saying, what? I've never obfuscated anything in my life. Exactly. That's just exactly how often you ought to use this stroke, this brushy stroke. Only when you're on purpose obfuscating texture. Big words. I'm doing that on purpose, of course, to say, unless you're obfuscating texture, don't do it. What does that mean? Okay, I'll use a more common. Unless you're scumbling. Okay, scumbling to a degree. Scumbling is you want to diminish, smooth out texture on your canvas, so you actually do go like that. But even then, you don't go like this. You go like I did right then. I've said very many times in my painting classes, and I thank you for your comments, your chat, guys. Gang, I'll get to those in just a minute. I've said many times in my painting classes, and forgive me for sounding arrogant, but again, I want to make the point. I can hear bad painting with my back turned. I'm doing something at the canvas. All the students are behind me, and I want you to hear it too. I want you to hear the sound of bad painting, awful painting, ugly. Okay, ready? Listen. Close your eyes. Go listen. If it was on a canvas, it'd be even louder. And I don't have a canvas here. Do you hear that? That is bad painting. You should virtually never be making that sound when you're painting. Okay. End of negative tirade. Well, that's what he says now. Just give him another minute. He'll probably be at it again. Okay, I might. So, but maybe that's the end of the the negative tirade. Now let's do some positive stuff. Okay? So I just happen to have right here a tray of gouache. Here's all my colors. in there. And on the outside, I just have a selection of greens. That'll do for now. Let's pick up a nice medium-sized brush. Dip that in water. Pick up some... Okay. Now, if you're not allowed to go brushy, 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 if you're not allowed to go spinny, spinny, brushy, 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 if you're not allowed to do that, then what are you allowed to do? I'm so glad you asked. So glad you asked. Now, I want this broadcast to be fairly short. So I'm going to try to make this as succinct as I can. This entire broadcast could go under the heading of painting and drawing, painting skills. Now, have discovered in the last month or so that my teaching, I do a lot of teaching. I've had thousands of students, or maybe not 2,000, maybe, I don't know, but well over 1,000 students. And I have said often that the essence of good painting is making interesting marks. And I've demonstrated for my students how to make those marks. And then I turn around and my students don't do it. So in the last couple months, I've had an epiphany. A light bulb came on over my head. I went, oh my goodness. I've been missing something for all these years I've been teaching. I have been underemphasizing. So now I'm trying to correct that, okay? I've been underemphasizing. The word is skill. Now, let me define this really quickly. In the common vernacular, people, at least in America, they use the word skill for a lot of different things. Someone could be said to be a skilled scientist, or a skilled mathematician, or a skilled writer. But I'm saying no, no, no. That's the loose, very vague, abstract, broad meaning of the word skill. I'm going to narrow it down, tighten down the word skill. Here's what the word skill means. The word skill has to do with moving muscles and bones. Get that? Skill, in the way I'm using it, refers to the moving of muscles and bones, your body, in other words. So let me tell you some people that do have skill. So does a mathematician have skill? You mean he's particularly excellent at writing numbers? Absurd, right? Does a writer have skill? Not if he's using a typewriter, unless he's a good typist. Then he's moving muscles and bones, you see. But that's not what a person means. When they say a good writer, they don't mean he was a good typist. A good typist has skill because it's muscles and bones. Athletes have skill. Musicians have skill. Calligraphers have skill. And lo and behold, artists like me have skill. And I've woefully underemphasized this point for many years in my teaching. So I'm rectifying that right now. It turns out that I actually do have skill in my hands. Now, let me continue to make just a little explanation, caveat, and give myself a little excuse why I've missed this for so long. Because I don't want you to misunderstand or mishear me. Many people, again, non-artists in our culture, and I've experienced this scores of times. A non-artist will say to me something like, well, I can see it in my head, but when I try to draw it, it just doesn't come out right. And they kind of look at their hand like, what's wrong with my hand? Something is wrong between my head and my hand. That's what people say. I've heard that maybe hundreds of times over the decades. I can see it in my mind, but when I go to draw it, my hand just won't do it. They're kind of blaming their hand. Likewise, those same people, they think that my skill is in my hands. And so I've reacted so strongly, that is so false, so wrong, so erroneous, that for decades I've said, no, 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 no. What makes me an artist is what's between my ears. One of these days I thought of a very diabolical, if I can use that word, a really kind of a mean-spirited that I might do. I'm just mean enough to do it. Demonstration that I might do someday. to prove that my skill is not in my hands. And that is, I'm going to tape a pencil or a paintbrush to my toes, maybe even my left foot, because I'm right-footed. My left foot is the most uncoordinated drawing part of my body. I could do better with a pencil in my mouth, you understand? But I thought, well, I could do this demonstration. I'll do it live right here on YouTube and show you how well I can draw whatever with my left foot to prove that the skill is between my ears, it's not in my hands. Okay, so that's a sort of a passion that I've had, but I've overdone it because in recent months I've begun to realize, oh, you know what? Wait a minute. I do have skill in my hands. Now, you understand that's an exception. All non-artists think that my skill is in my hands. All of us artists know it's not in my hands, it's between my ears, but it is also in my hands. So I've spent many minutes vehemently describing how not to move. Let me then spend a few minutes talking about, yes, how to move, okay? And of course, I'm not working standing up here. And I'm not trying to draw anything, as you can tell. Drop your brush if that helps. Okay, now you're struggling probably to try to figure out, I don't get it, what's he doing? And I'm struggling to try to demonstrate something for you here. Okay, so right there I was doing scumbly, right? I was doing brushy, but only for a moment and only in order to contrast. That's the word to everything else I'm doing. What I would like you to see is variety. And all kinds of, like I'm twirling the brush here. I think you can see that when I'm dragging it. In fact, other than for a few brief moments, the entire time that I've been painting, I've been holding the brush in any grip but this one right here. That. The death control killer, creativity killer, death grip. Not that. Everything but that. Anything but that. And if you watch me paint, if you pay attention to the way I hold my brush, most of the time, 99% of the time, the only time I hold my brush in this manner when I'm doing an oil painting, now not watercolor here, but oil painting, is to do my signature, Dan Nelson. Okay? That's the only time. All the rest of the time, I'm holding it like this. Now, part of what I'm saying here is, in recent years, I haven't thought of that. I haven't thought of myself as having a lot of skill in my hands, but it turns out that I do have a lot of skill. Okay, so you want to develop skill. Here's how you do it. Number one, no brushy. None. Eliminate it. Don't even do this, because your temptation is to do this all the time. Just to do. Get it? And that is awful painting. It's only allowable here on this page because it's contrasting just to everything else I've already done. But even that, don't even do that. Because why? Because you're programmed. Your hand does this automatically. Anything. Let me. I think this is a golf truism. If it feels natural, you're doing it wrong. I think one of you golfers will have to let me know if that's true. But I believe that is a common golf coach adage, truism. If it feels natural, you're doing it wrong. The same thing essentially is true. Why? Because if you're a beginner painter, what feels natural to you is this. Are you with me? So if it feels natural, you're not painting good. So you better do stuff that feels unnatural. And first of all, and holding the brush, not like this, but like this, is what I mean. Now, how long have I been going here? How many minutes have I been going? Too many, I'm afraid. 24 minutes. No. 24 are watching. Thank you for watching. I'm just trying to decide whether to go on. Okay, I will. I may never come back to this topic this intensely ever again. So let me go ahead and wrap it up. But before I do that, wrap it up with another opening, one more window into this principle. But let me look at your comments before I go. Hey, David Mercer, thank you. It's good to be back. I am going nuts. Only old friends can say I'm going nuts. Hello, Nancy Smitherman. Good to have you on board. No kidding. You're going to be an art teacher, David. Really? Good for you, man. Good. I'm glad. Marita, glad I'm an entertaining teacher. Janie Johnson. Hey, sweet friend. Good to hear you. And yes, I like those fountain pens quite well. Janie, I'm teaching an art class at Nicole's in March, I think. And then I've got some coming up at Jerry's. I don't even know when yet. David and Adrian would like to see me do a drawing with my feet. Okay, Adrian, one vote of confidence. That's all. Not today, but maybe some other day. Just to make the point, the opposite of the point I'm making today. It's not in my hands, but so I do it with my feet. My point is today, though, I do have skill with my hands. Okay, I want to continue on this subject with one more demonstration. And let's switch over for a moment. Let's switch over to drawing. I have a passion to teach because I have a passion to see you paint well. Can I tell you something funny about myself? At least I think it's odd. I think it's peculiar. I'm out and about in the world, and somebody, this just for instance, this kind of thing happens a lot, and somebody will mention, "Ooh, have you seen so-and-so artist online?" And I go, "No." So here's my, I'm a messed up human being just like all the rest of you. So as I'm Googling their name, the bad side, the little dark side of me, the little dark orphan spirit, twisted side of me is going, I hope they're not better than me. No, see, I try to squelch that. Shut up, you orphan spirit. I not receive that. That's naughty. That's bad. But that little whisper is there. Oh, I hope I'm better than they are. Okay, so far, I'm sounding really bad. Let me tell you the truth. If I go to their website and I find their stuff, listen to this, and if they're not as good as me, whatever that means, and that's not about comparing. Believe me, all of this comparison stuff, all the comparing comes from the dark side, right? But if they're not as good as me, guess what? I don't go, yippee, I'm better. I don't. Honestly, I don't even try to do this. It just comes out. I go, oh. And my disappointment that they're not better than me is way bigger than the little nasty little voice that said, oh, I hope they're not better than me. Okay, I'm just opening my soul to you and telling you what that's the heart of a teacher. Gang, I want everybody to be better than me. Dark, squeaky little nasty voice, shut up. The real me wants you to be better. So that's why I even get into this passion as much as I do. Dang, I want you to be good. I want you to be as good as you can be. And it's not about comparison. Of course, it's not. All comparison is from the dark side, as I said. But I want you to be good. I want you to be good. I want you to be better. I want me to be better, too, of course. Well, that goes without saying. Okay, so I'm going to go. Let's continue to talk about bad movements in painting. Now let's talk about bad movements in drawing. Basically, all the same rules apply, okay? So generally speaking, there's a place for that in drawing, but it's not a huge place. Most drawing is done elsewise. Now, I'm going to talk about one of my pet subjects when it comes to drawing. That is how to hold a pencil. And the answer is, don't hold it this way. Now, because I broadcast all the time, and I say this often, of course, over the years, I've gotten lots of kickback from people say, well, I never heard that. I've got an MFA, Master of Fine Arts degree, and all my professors held the pencil that way. You're just crazy. Can I tell you, since I'm bearing my soul, let me tell you that when I do get repeat negative comments back from a person, or challenges, like, you're wrong. I don't know about you, but I do what you would do. I Google these people. and I find their artwork. Ooh, now we're getting nasty. And you know what? Almost always their art speaks for itself. In other words, they're not very good. Forgive me. But that's most of the time. Most of the time. Now, I'm not saying aren't some human beings, artists in the world, who are an extraordinary exception to the rule, and they hold their pencil like this, and they're brilliant, skilled drawers. But they're the exception, not the rule. When you hold your pencil this way, you're in the part of your brain that is control freak. This is how you do, you know, a calligraphy, right? You know, A, B. I'm not doing it right. I'll be. You know, I've been doing a lot of calligraphy, and this is horrible, messy. But that kind of stuff, right? That's your control freak. Or when you're in first grade, second or third grade, you're trying to learn how to do this. This is how you hold your drawing implement. And I promise you that all the years that you have spent doing this kind of skill has completely dedicated this grip, this penmanship grip, to control, to the control freak part of your brain. You can take the word freak out if you want, but this is the control grip. And when you're wanting to draw, and I should use the word sketch perhaps, when you're wanting to sketch, capture, when you're wanting to do a gesture drawing, you don't want to be stuck in the control freak part of your brain, because that part of your brain is into control. So then your brain's going, witness the tongue. Okay, have I acted that out good enough? And it's free now. Let me give some response to the people that say, well, I had this professor and he never said anything about that. Now I'm going to pull rank. Why am I going to pull rank? Because I know all the greats agree with me. The Rembrandts, John Singer Sargent. I saw 2 original John Singer Sargents at Biltmore House 3 days ago. Spectacular. The American Rembrandt. And all the greats draw in a remarkably similar fashion. In fact, I have some books here. I wasn't sure if I was going to pull these out, but I'm going to. Let me show you some of my wonderful book collection. Forgive me while I cause quite an earthquake for you there. This is a book that I inherited from a deceased artist. Sketching and Rendering in Pencil by Arthur somebody or other. Published, the point is, in 1922. Okay? That's a very interesting period in art history, because either this person in 1922 was being swept up in the swirl of modern art, like is it Malkovich who did Black on Black in 1912? Do you understand? So the extreme crazy stuff was going on way by 1922, or else this artist was not. Well, the answer is, all you have to do is start looking at a few of the images. Juan Carlos, very good question. I will come back to that, my friend. How to hold a pen. Okay. I just wanted to see. I kept this book, this oddball book. I'll turn it toward you just a little bit. There we go. Excuse me. I want to get away from all the printing. I kept this oddball book because it is such a brilliant example of good drawing. My point being, all the great draftsmen and draftswomen through history, the great ones, not the good ones, the great ones, all have a remarkable similarity. Now, everyone is unique, but they have this remarkable degree of overlap with the kinds. I'll just stop here for a moment. right there with that image. They have a remarkable degree of similarity of line and stroke. And I guarantee you, this beautiful craftsmanship was not executed with this grip. Now, the little shading, yes, but not the sketching. Let me give you some other examples. So here again, I want you to be a good artist, good drawer, good painter. And in order to do that, you need to start developing a discerning eye. Let me put it this way. It's been years since I was a baseball fan, but I want to use baseball rather than football right now. What name should I use? I mean, Ty Cobb, he's before my time even. Some Golden Glove Award winner, winner. And never mind, I should have gone in that direction because I can't name any. But the all-stars, the superstars in the Major League, all Major League Baseball players are phenomenally gifted. They're all good. But even among the good, there are the greats. And I have some books here that I just want to, okay, now this one, I'll tell you the hero, I'll tell you the name because he's one of my heroes. Forgive me, this is a detour. If the best anatomy book, Willie Mays, thank you, Cos. That's right, there we go, Willie Mays. Okay, Jack Ham, best anatomy book in the world. He's just a half an inch ahead of the other two that I'll talk about some other time. One of the reasons, and he wrote in the 1960s, so his styles, his hairstyles, his fashion, his makeup on the women is hilariously out of date. But what I want you to see on some of these pages is that in spite of him being out of date, he was actually he was a Willie Mays. He was an extremely gifted draftsman. Now, let me see if I can find a page where this really shows up. I guess that first page I opened has a big picture. This is done on Coquille board. You'd have to look that up. C-O-Q, Coquille. There, that's some good draftsmanship. Now, the reason I'm pointing out this to you is that let me use the baseball analogy for a minute. I'm a lousy baseball player. I mean, I liked playing sandlot, backyard baseball when I was a kid. That was pretty much in college. It was probably the last time I played a baseball game. It's just for fun. By myself, I probably could not, to this day, probably would not be able to tell the difference between a NCAA large, Division I baseball player, college boy, and a professional. Much less, I couldn't tell the difference between a single, double, or triple A minor leaguer and a major leaguer because I have no skill in that area. I have to have a lot of skill to even discern the difference between these two players, right? Let alone, I can't distinguish between a Major League Baseball player and a Willie Mays. The only reason I know is because everybody else says, ooh, they're the best, and their stats, their numbers, right? But by looking at them on the field, I can say, ooh, the way that guy moves. There are other areas in life where I can do that. I coached cross country and track for 11 years after college. So I'm pretty good and was a pretty good distance runner. So I can look at a runner and say, ooh, those guys are all good, but that one's great. When it comes to drawing, now I will not let you see the name of this book, and I hope you don't know. And the person who did this book is a good drawer. They might even be a major league, probably more like AAA minor league drawer. And you can learn stuff from this book. It's an anatomy book. And anybody, this is a beneficial book. I myself would benefit by drawing every drawing in this book. But the level of skill on these drawings versus the level of skill here, or the level of skill in this old book, the differences to me are quite stark. Okay? And so that's part of what I'm saying, that you want to begin to develop an eye I'll pull out just one more book. This is one that I had to get in college. I just looked a few minutes ago. I think it was published in 1973. So you have to put yourself back. This is a Rembrandt, I believe. But because they're 1973, they had to give full vent to the modern and contemporary stuff that was happening all around them. This is a decidedly bad drawing because this is a horrible drawing by the very famous artist Oskar Kokoschka. Why is he famous? He's famous for his socio-political influence, not because he was a good draftsman. As you can see, his draftsmanship is terrible. My professors didn't have the freedom to tell us students that he was a terrible drawer, but he is. Why is he famous? Not because of his drawing, but because of his socio-political, philosophical propagations, I perhaps should say. Okay, so this book is a real mixed bag. It has some brilliant drawing in it, and it has also some lousy drawing in it. By the way, the whole modern art movement has done much to create dimwits of the entire the Western world, because we buy a book like this, and it has Oskar Kokoschka in it right next to a Rembrandt, or this. Here's a Richard Diebenkorn. Very famous. His paintings, my paintings, will never sell for the millions. But he's famous not because he was a good artist. He's famous because of his shtick, because of his personality, because of his socio-political, frankly, Marxist sociological philosophies. Okay, these guys were against beauty. You can tell they were against beauty. Anyway, so don't be fooled. Not everything that's in the museum is good. It's there because of its cutting edge edginess, not because, like this drawing, because it's beautiful. This is beautiful. Winslow Homer. Bum. There you go. Excellent drawer. Winslow Homer was this kind of drawer. Now he might have done this. Okay, so somebody left a comment. Who was it? Let me go back to it in just a minute. I'm almost done here. Let's go back. Janie, good to have you again. Excuse me, if a beginner painter never scrubby felt natural, do you use other strokes that feel natural? Not wrong. Subjective. No. It's not subjective at best. It is subjective, but it is not subjective at best. And forgive me, I know you're a beginner painter, so I don't even have to look at your artwork. I am a fairly good painter. You do well to pay attention. Okay, that's pretty mean of me to say that, Terry. But typical, a beginner wants to tell me, everything you're saying is just subjective. Maybe that wasn't your attitude, forgive me. But no, this is not subjective. I just showed you all the greats versus the not so greats. Yeah, Terry, bless your little heart. Yeah, of course. That's why I said all comparison is not. So, but I make the point just to make the point and then get out of comparison. I don't live there. Okay, now Juan Carlos says, how do you hold your pen when hatching or cross-hatching? Thank you, Juan Carlos. Let me make a real clear distinction. I hold my pen in this manner when I'm sketching, when I'm doing the big. And by the way, in order to do that, I also want to, forgive me, let me earthquake you guys just a little bit. I'm using a lap board now. See, this does not work very well. That's not but this does work, okay? So I use this kind of motion to do, and of course here I'm not drawing anything. Let's say I'm drawing a forearm. Here's an elbow. Here's forearm, and a hand, and so on and so forth. Now when it's time to shade, yes, I switch my grip over to something like this. And my hand also has skill in it. And this is the death control grip. It is, indeed. So this is the time for that control, is when you're doing not the drawing per se, not the shape, not the big shapes and the big lines and the gestures, but when you're doing tiny little details. So if I'm drawing a large eyeball, for instance, how do I draw it? I draw it like this, with this kind of grip. And then when it's time to shade, I switch to the control grip. Okay? Right, so that. Now, let me say, when you're using a pen, most pens will not allow you to do the side saddle grip. They won't write. But I do have, well, it's not here, I won't get it then. I do have a fountain pen. It's called Pen and Ink Sketch brand of fountain pens. That they actually do a lot, make a nice mark even when you're holding side saddle. So that's just something to keep in mind. Some fountain pens you can hold this way and sketch, which is a great advantage to me. A rapidograph pen, which I've done hours and hours and hours of work behind a rapidograph pen, you have to hold like this or it doesn't write. Okay, just a few other comments. Yes, Janie, relax and go for it. Exactly. That's right. That's right, David. I'm as good as you when I saw your art. David, I tried to find all I could. Mostly what I found, not entirely. Mostly what I found was landscape. And my hat's off to you, my friend. And you are not numbered among those who what's the word, harass me. You make good points and often very funny points, especially when I'm being arrogant. But unlike, who's our dear new friend, Terry, Dime Store Diva. Terry, my dear, I know I was a little bit harsh on you there, my friend, but I want you to be a good artist. So do go ahead and pay attention instead of rejecting as a beginner. I don't go onto a baseball field and tell major league players how they should hold the bat. That's just completely incongruous. And yes, I am making that analogy. Yes, I am. That's not comparison there. That's just knowing who one is. All right, I think I'm done. Not that kind of stuff. If it feels natural, you're probably not doing it right. Oh, okay, I'm repeating myself. Thanks for joining me. I hope to do another broadcast this afternoon. I have a commission on the board, and I need to do some sketches, and it's always fun to do sketches with you guys looking over my shoulder. Okay, thanks so much.